Imagine a project so big, so ambitious, that it literally tries to replumb an entire country. Well, that's exactly what China is doing. It's called the South-North Water Transfer Project, and it's a plan to physically move its biggest rivers from one end of the nation to the other. We're not just talking about a dam or a canal here. This is about changing the very geography of the country. And the price tag? Well, it's staggering. We're talking over $80 billion. That makes it the most expensive infrastructure project in all of human history, a project that makes even the famous Three Gorges Dam look small. So let's dig in and audit what that incredible amount of money has actually bought.
If the cost is hard to wrap your head around, the sheer amount of water is even crazier. The goal is to move almost 45 billion cubic meters of water every single year. That's basically a whole new man-made river flowing from the south to the north.
So, why on earth would you do this? It all boils down to a huge problem of geography. China's water is in the south, but a lot of its people and its political power are in the north. And the north, including the capital, Beijing, is desperately, chronically thirsty. So the goal is simple, even if the plan is completely audacious. And that audacious plan is the South-North Water Transfer Project. It's this incredibly complex system designed to keep the country's economic engine running. But as you're about to see, when you start messing with nature on this scale, the consequences are just as massive as the engineering itself. So let's start by looking at the price of all this progress. We'll get into the amazing engineering, for sure. But we're also going to unpack the immense and often hidden human toll that came along with it. Okay, so the centerpiece of this whole thing is what's called the Central Route. It's a brand new waterway finished back in 2014. Think of it as an artificial river stretching for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And its source is the gigantic Dongjingkou Reservoir, which they had to make even bigger just to feed this new water artery. It's easy to get wowed by an engineering marvel like that, but that's only half the picture. You have to ask the tough question: what was the real human cost here? Because when you raise a dam wall that high, all that water has to go somewhere. And the answer is just, it's unbelievable. 345,000 people. Let that number sink in for a second. That's the number of people who were forced from their homes to make way for this one expanding reservoir. Entire towns, villages, counties, just gone, underwater. These people became known as water migrants, and they weren't just moved to the next town over. No way. Many were resettled in totally different provinces, forced to deal with new climates, find new jobs, and basically start a completely new life from scratch. And this brings us right to the state's justification for all this. It's a really stark, cold utilitarian calculation. You take the displacement and upheaval of more than 345,000 people, and you weigh it against providing water for over 150 million people in the north. It's brutal, pragmatic math with enormous human consequences. All right, that brings us to the next layer of this whole thing. Because what happens when you solve one huge problem, like water scarcity? Well, you often create a whole cascade of new ones, especially for the environment. Okay, take the eastern route. On paper, it's a pretty smart move. To save a ton of money, it piggybacks on China's ancient Grand Canal. But there's a huge catch. The canal runs right through some of China's most polluted, industrialized areas. So you have this very real danger that you're just creating a massive pipeline to ship contaminated water to the very people you're trying to help. Now, that's a serious problem, but there's an even bigger one lurking. This whole project siphons off a massive chunk of the Yangtze River's water. So what happens to one of the most important rivers in the world when you suddenly take away that much of its flow? Well, you get something called the Yangtze deficit. See, a weaker river just doesn't have the power to push back against the ocean, so salt water from the sea starts creeping further and further inland. This is a direct threat to the freshwater supply for a global city like Shanghai, and it completely rewires the entire ecosystem of the river delta, putting countless plants and animals at risk. You know, it creates this incredible paradox. A quote I saw summed it up perfectly. By attempting to solve water scarcity in the north, the project creates a new crisis of water quality in the south. The solution for one problem becomes a source of a brand new one. Now let's get to the final piece of this grand plan. And honestly, this is the part that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. It's so ambitious and so dangerous that right now it's still stuck on the drawing board. This is the Western Route. The plan?
to blast a series of massive tunnels through the Himalayas, through the Tibetan Plateau, to tap the headwaters of the Yangtze River. I mean, the sheer engineering challenge is just on another level entirely.
And this plan has scientists absolutely terrified. Why? Because you'd be tunneling through one of the most geologically unstable regions on the entire planet. The risk of triggering powerful, destructive earthquakes isn't just a side note, it's a very real danger.
But the risks aren't just geological, they are absolutely geopolitical. The headwaters they want to divert feed rivers like the Mekong and the Brahmaputra. These are the lifelines for literally billions of people in India and Southeast Asia. If you start messing with their water, you're not just creating an engineering project, you're lighting a geopolitical fuse. So, after looking at the incredible engineering, the devastating human cost, and the terrifying environmental risks, let's pull this all together. What's the final verdict? How does this massive project really score? This scorecard really lays it out clearly, doesn't it? The eastern route is cheaper, but you get a high risk of pollution. The central route was a monster to build and hugely expensive, but it's working. And then there's the western route, where the cost and the risks are so extreme that it's just stalled. Probably for good reason. This really gets to the heart of the debate. Is this project about economics or politics? From a purely economic view, many experts argue that the benefits just don't justify that astronomical $80 billion cost. But from a political view, it's a pragmatic way to stop potential social unrest over water shortages. And man, what a powerful symbol of the state's ability to conquer nature. Now, to be fair, you can't deny the project's impact. It has delivered real results. Water is flowing to 150 million people. Beijing has been able to cut back on draining its precious groundwater, and it's helped fuel industrial growth in the north. Those are very significant, very real successes. But all of this leaves us with one final profound question. When a nation gets so powerful that it can bend the planet's geography to its will, that it can literally move a river, what is the true price of that power? Because as this project shows, that power always comes with a cost, paid by ecosystems, paid by displaced people, and maybe even paid by future generations.